AL-BINO here again. I did not cover everything I wanted to cover in the last hour-long podcast that I did. So, my ADD took over. So I was going into Cesar Chavez and Malcolm X and civil rights stuff and stuff like that towards the end. And I was like, oh my God, I alluded to something I wanted to mention to. I started down that path and then I got sidetracked and on a tangent, right? ADD. Take my jacket off. It's cold outside, but warm in the car. Right? Warm in the truck. Hold on. Oh, for all you millennials who hate on masculinity, I'm almost 50 years old. Twice your age. And I still give you the expression I came up with. Walk a mud hole in your ass, or kick a mud hole in your ass and walk it dry. Anyways, so replacement migration, the things in particular that Cesar Chavez was actually working against, if you believe it, and why he is actually not from the left and how they've painted him to be, but what he actually was as a civil rights leader. When he was trying to set up his migrant worker unions and trying to work with the Border Patrol to protect the legal migrants and the American citizens in the migrant worker farming community. When he was alive, he was actually a civil rights leader protecting against replacement migration. What is replacement migration? Why are the Democrats championing undocumented people as much as they do? Well, somebody who spent most of his life in the Mountain West, particularly in the Southwest, which is still the South, but it's the Southwest, and actually California, even though it wasn't a southern state, but the agricultural demographics being what they are now, it would be a southern state in the antebellum period, economically, and now politically too, if this was 1860. Why did I say that? See, I work in the trades. Trucking. I've trucked lumber. I've trucked agricultural goods. I've trucked liturgical supplies. I'm now trucking sugar beets. Okay? Now, a lot of the hands and feet, not mechanized, but hands and feet portion of farm labor is not conducted by green card holders or American citizens anymore, because just like Cesar Chavez said when he was alive and what he was trying to protect against, most of that has been taken over by undocumented persons, to the point to where a green card holder or an American citizen cannot sustain themselves by doing that sort of labor at the rates at which it's paid. So here's the picture I'm painting for you. We import a bunch of people, and those who, they'll be on the public dole for a while, and some of them will be on the public dole indefinitely, because eventually the plan is for them to become a Democrat-friendly voting bloc. But for what they're not on the public dole for, the expectation is they'll go out and do domestic jobs or hands and feet farm labor jobs, because no matter how much you mechanize agriculture, there will be aspects of that still have to be done by hands and feet, such as picking apples, washing sugar beets, sorting nuts, picking strawberries. Some of that stuff cannot be done by machine. It has to be done by hand and feet, okay? So, if they're not willing to pay a living wage to legal green card holding immigrants or American citizens, what's at their advantage to use for nannies, for these hands and feet agricultural jobs, or even in the trades? How come most of the people building the houses nowadays are illegal migrants? Not legal, illegal migrants who are probably paid less than minimum wage, or they're paid by piecework, and depending on the pace of the piecework, it could be less than minimum wage, and they have next to no benefits. But see, they have no legal status either. That's the key point. And even though they're not bought and sold on a slave block, but they are, because many of them are shipped up here on credit to the cartels by which they owe a debt. And this also goes for the sex slave trade too, what they call white slavery, or used to call white slavery, but it's not. It's black as hell. And why the fuck are black people down with this and voting with this party, when this party is essentially doing the same thing to these illegals or undocumented persons, but using a slightly different backdoor way that was done to them before the Civil War, and even after the Civil War, through what they would call sharecropping or tenant farming. A lot of white people got caught up in that too. My great-grandfather was a sharecropper until he managed to scrape enough money together to buy some land, and that land is still in the family, by the way. Later in his life. But yeah, when my grandfather was born, he was born to a sharecropper, and they were dirt poor. So the things you hear about black sharecroppers in the South and some white sharecroppers, he lived that life up until about 1938, 39. Till about 1940. Okay? And that was his dad's life until his dad managed to save up enough money to buy their own land. But going back to that, okay, so why are black people down with the Democrat Party through replacement migration? Because black people can't be the cotton pickers anymore, because it's politically incorrect to force them to be the cotton pickers, either through chattel slavery or abusive tenant farming. So we'll bring in another class of undocumented people. And then also black people are now buying into the eugenics Margaret Sanger paradigm by what's going on with their culture, as Margaret Sanger outlined in 1939. And then they rewrite history on people like Malcolm X and Cesar Chavez, and they turn Malcolm X into a villain. They talk about Cesar Chavez and assign him a role opposite of the role that he actually served. And Malcolm X was actually the for real black civil rights, for real not his religion, and yes, his faith drove a lot of it, but in his practice was the for real civil rights guy in his era as a silent generation guy, not a boomer. Fucking boomers. For his demographic. And Cesar Chavez was trying to protect the rights of those who came here legally. His compatriot Mexican and Mexican American legal citizens and residents in his industry and in his line of work, and the American citizens that were alongside of him. So, but yet he's portrayed as this leftist socialist scion, which he was not, absolutely was not, for immigration. Illegal immigration, not legal immigration, illegal immigration. And he's portrayed as something completely opposite of what he actually was. Do you see the fucking okie doke, the flim flam? Do you understand what they really mean by replacement migration? So we combine the Margaret Sanger element with the replacement of the cotton pickers and the house Negroes with a different demographic through a back door, but they're undocumented persons, so therefore they really don't have a legal status here. And oh, by the way, they're permanent dependents, just like a slave or a tenant farmer or sharecropper was a permanent dependent to their Democrat plantation owner. Does this make sense now? Wake up, black people. Not only because you're trying to preserve yourselves as a demographic to keep from being drawn down the path of self-extermination, culturally and literally, just like the Egyptians wanted to do to the Israelites in the book of Exodus, but also altruistically, because now they're trying to spin up the same thing again, but using a different demographic of persons. Because this is literally importing a permanent dependent demographic from somewhere else in the world to do either free or greatly discounted hands and feet type labor while remaining permanently dependent on their employers and the system at large. Exactly like black, Native American, and Irish slaves in the antebellum period. So, in actuality, black people should be totally against this. They should really sit down and look at this, and if they have cultural trauma, they should be like, holy fuck, this is happening again. This is fucked up. This fucking traumatizes me because it's not, well, it is happening to you, but they're trying to get you to culturally and demographically suicide and then replacement migrate others into the place at which you were held at one time, but now can no longer be politically or legally held. Because now everybody's awake to that, but they're not awake to the fact that it's happening again, but this time with people who might have a lighter shade of brown or a different set of ancestry and speak Spanish. I shut down my Facebook many years ago because of all the dumb shit that was going on there and some of the social problems it was causing me. But I wrote a very lengthy article to a talk show host in, I want to say 2012, about this in Frederick, Maryland at the time. And I'm not sure whether, I didn't get to listen to his show for a few days, but I'm not sure whether or not he read it, but I'm sure, or I read it on the air, but I'm sure he read about it. Y'all, these people are being indebted to these cartels, and they're put on trucks, stuffed in cars, or walked across, literally herded across the mountains and the wilderness and the deserts and pushed across a river. It sounds to me a lot similar to a bunch of people being stacked on ships and sailed across an ocean in the fucking same shitty type conditions. If you really think about it. And these people never really seem to pay off their actual debts to these coyotes. And they really, because of all of this, and because their employer can be like, you either fucking do this or I'll get you deported, or I report you to your coyote, and then the coyote rapes them, beats them, does something to their family in their home country. It's like being put in the iron collar and tied to a tree and whipped. Pretty much the same thing, ain't it? If they're not a good Nigger, they're just not of African descent, but that's pretty much what they're being used for. That's why they're being brought up here. Do you understand, black people, what illegal immigration, undocumented immigration, replacement immigration really, actually, truly is? Why in the fuck did you believe LBJ and get back on the Democrat plantation just for this to happen to somebody else, while you are being sold a cultural social contract to culturally, and with the Margaret Sanger paradigm of baby deletion, which was, and she even admits, specifically crafted to get you to self-genocide. Why are you signing on to this? Hello, black people. Why is Martin Luther King the first recipient of the Margaret Sanger Award? Why did they have to completely rewrite the history of Cesar Chavez? Why is Malcolm X? And I remember this because I am Generation X, and I'm of the opinion that we're the fuck you generation. And we, because we were so rebellious and so stalwart, were given the negative moniker in a epithet type of way, Generation X, because we all wore that t-shirt back in high school. But you know what? Fucking stick me with Generation Malcolm X. Because, as I said in my previous video, I may be anti-Muslim, but you know what? Sometimes good Muslims come around and do the right thing, and he happened to be one of them. And everything he stood for as a man, not religiously, but as a man, because he even defended Jewish people. Which historically are not considered friends of Muslim people, but he defended Jewish people. He defended white people. He defended people. And as a man, as he functioned in his personal and public life, he did the right things. So yes, please give me the X moniker as a generation. I'll gladly take it. And for God's sake, quit trying to fuck up Cesar Chavez, because Cesar Chavez was not the Fidel Castro that they make him out to be. Cesar Chavez was a Spanish-speaking Malcolm X. And Cesar Chavez is rolling in his grave right now, because Cesar Chavez knew that if he did not protect the American and legal immigrant farm worker and domestic communities in this country, that they would be replaced by another class of imported, dependent, underpaid, foul up the wage system, NIGGERs of another demographic. Hello, black people. Do you understand? Get off the plantation. Help me fight the plantation. Donald Trump not only wants to stop the criminal activity because of this, Donald Trump wants to stop this because he knows in the 1860s and in the 1940s and 50s and the first half of the 1960s, we fought a whole ass civil war and civil rights movement because of this. That is the bottom line. Come over to my side, black people. The water's nice and warm. We're waiting for you. Come over to my side, legal Hispanic residents and Hispanic American citizens. We're for you. The water's warm for you too. And don't you understand the people of your demographic being imported from other countries in an undocumented status where they actually have no civil standing are the new chattel slaves? Wake up, guys. This is hard truth, but it's spoken in love. This is AL-BINO signing out.